Good. Thank you for joining Coach's Corner this week. So we had a little mix up. Jess did this week's email and it's so good, but she is traveling this week. So we as a team are going to kind of talk through her email a little bit. I highly recommend you read it if you haven't because it is so pertinent this time of year. And also this time of life, I think for many of us, it can be so easy to say yes to too many things, get overextended, and feel anxious, feel resentment, feel fatigue, and just not be our best selves and not take care of ourselves. And so, I know for sure at this stage of life, like I'm navigating my children's needs, I'm navigating my parents' wants or desires or needs, I'm navigating, my husband's needs, and then there's like a million other things community wise from sports to school to neighbors that can feel like a lot. And then if on top of that I'm saying yes to everything extra, there's no time for me. There's no time, and that doesn't even include work, right? So Marita mentioned in her Instagram story today about taking care of our own health and wellness. And I think that applies. Like, if we're so overextended, it can be really hard to prioritize ourselves. And then if we deprioritize ourselves, then we end up feeling terrible. And we aren't able to then do all the things that we need to be doing in midlife, which is sometimes a lot. So, how can we better assess our capacity and also be accountable to that for ourselves so that we can feel good and allow for rest and recovery and showing up for ourselves. Because if we aren't showing up for ourselves, then we're not going to be able to really show up for anyone else in a positive way. And so I wanted to talk a little bit about that, and then we'll kind of all pitch in as a team on like some practical ideas too. So I wanted to read this from Jess's email on the psychology behind boundaries because I think it's really good and very a great explanation. So according to Dr. Kristen Neff, one of the leading researchers on self-compassion, being kind to ourselves in difficult moments builds the internal resilience we need to face external challenges. Boundaries are a form of applied self-compassion, which I think growing up, I don't know, I'm a middle child, people pleaser. Boundaries are something that like I wasn't really taught, even though props to my mom, she is a therapist, like she taught me a lot of great things. I think just my natural intuition is to please everyone. And so, and getting validated for like how much I could handle. And so a lot of times that's something I have a very hard time with. And I think I'm not alone in that. But the more I learn about boundaries and apply them, the more amazing I feel. And so hopefully this is something we can all learn from together. But boundaries protect our energy and allow us to operate from overflow instead of depletion. Every time you hold a boundary, you tell your subconscious, my needs matter, my energy matters, my peace matters. And that message reshapes our self image and our nervous system. It teaches our brain that safety doesn't come from pleasing others, it comes from protecting ourselves. And then talking about food, I think this is like a very interesting connection because I think a lot of us that don't have good boundaries with other people often like don't have good boundaries within our own personal choices too. So our relationship with boundaries often mirrors our relationship with food. If you struggle to say no to people, you might also struggle to say no to food when you're full or say yes to food when your body needs it, even if diet culture says otherwise. So boundaries with food are just as important as boundaries with others. This might sound like I'll eat when I'm hungry and stop when I'm satisfied. I'm not going to criticize my body while I'm eating. No, thank you. I'm full. Um, these simple statements can help reframe eating as an act of respect, not restriction, and then help us get more centered on like trusting our inner and external cues. And when we as we learn to strengthen these boundaries, our relationship with food and our body can naturally improve too. So, some 5 tools for navigating life and setting boundaries would be the pause. So this is really a great one. Before you just like knee jerk say yes to everything, which is always my first reaction, like, yeah, I'll figure it out. Before you do that, ask yourself, does this align with my energy, my values, and my needs right now? And the power is always in the pause. So I think this can also be applied to food, to fitness, to rest. Um, like giving yourself a second and like paying attention to your body and deciding if the choice that you're about to make aligns with your energy, your values, and your needs right now. And then clear, simple language, like skip the apologies. The longer you explain, the easier it is for others to negotiate. This is something that's really interesting. And I know I always like to over explain things. Like, let me tell you all the reasons why this won't work. But I have recognized that like those reasons don't really matter. Like, we don't need to explain ourselves to someone else because when you do that, it opens the door for their opinion and for them to tell you like maybe they don't think your reasons are valid, but it doesn't really matter because they're valid to you. So understanding like your own reasons for saying no to something and keeping it simple. And you can do that really kindly. I think I always felt like I needed an explanation to be kind, and I think that's not true. So trying just like that won't work for me. One that I use a lot, or not a lot, but one that I have been working on incorporating is like, I don't have capacity for that right now, but thank you so much for thinking of me. When it's maybe an opportunity, or something that like isn't a bad thing that they're asking me to do, but I just don't have capacity. And I think that's one where I'm giving some explanation, but like it's not something that someone's going to argue with and be like, actually, you don't have very much on your plate, right? But if you're like, oh, I have to run the kids here and make dinner, I can't do that thing tomorrow. They're like, oh, wait, why can't you do it tomorrow? So just, I think saying like, I don't have capacity, or I appreciate the offer, but I'm not available, or Marita just put one on there too. This is kind of more of like allowing for that pause too. Like, let me check my schedule. I think that's a really good one for allowing for the pause. So you have a minute. Like, you don't have to decide right then if it's going to work for you, whatever is being asked of you. Like, let me check my schedule. I'll get back to you. Or for me, I mean, I'm running a family with someone else. Like, let me talk to Craig and I will get back to you. So
But
giving yourself some like lines to say, because that is really helpful so you're not on the spot trying to think of how to set a boundary. Yeah, Henrietta?
yeah, it was just like the finger. Uh, I just remember like when hearing that, I use that, I say that a lot actually. For example, with I think several people can relate to like having a lot of friends and not having the time to meet with them. And that can also like that's a positive, like that's good things. You have a good time with your friends, but at the same time, you also have to have the capacity, like the mental and the space to do that. Otherwise, it
Yeah,
becomes stress. And something that I feel is that when, especially having a child that either me or Andreas has to be at home, like, or she can't be left alone. So if I'm going to make plans, I always have to check in with Andreas. I always
right.
have to check, is he home? Is he out of town? When does he come home? Does he have like, does the boys have soccer? It's just, there's so many things that needs to be checked before I can actually make that plan. So that is something that I often say is like, I don't have the mental capacity to deal with the logistics. So
Yeah.
I'll see you later. And I think like that's
Yeah.
most people can recognize themselves in that excuse, which is really like it takes so much to make it work. And I just don't have the capacity for that right now, like the mental capacity. That is something that I very often
Yeah.
say because it's true. Like, yeah,
And I think luckily, like I feel like peer to peer, I think our generation gets that a little bit more. Like we're a little bit better at like paying attention to our emotional health and like
yeah,
sharing that. Like I know I had friends that are like, I would love to come, but like I'm just not in the headspace right now to come. And I totally appreciate like if you are not in the headspace to come and socialize, like you're doing your friends a favor in some
yeah,
ways. Like we need community and I think we're there to lift one another up, but sometimes it's like I actually need to take care of myself right now in
yeah,
this way and like I'm not going to be able to really come show up and be a good friend. So I'm going to take care of myself and I'd love to reschedule with you another time, or not. Maybe it's a friend
yeah. Or
like
we
if
just
it
like
someone
do
that you should
something.
reschedule with.
Yeah, and then like I think cherishing those moments where you actually do something spontaneous, no, spontaneous,
Spontaneous.
and
Yeah.
then sometimes it works, and many times it doesn't. But at the same time, if I spontaneously reach out to a friend, they will always, even if they can't make it, they will always appreciate me doing so. And the same thing goes vice versa. If a friend reaches out to me spontaneous, do you want to go for a walk or do you want to go do this or that? And I'm like, oh, I'm very grateful you asked, but I'm not able to make it right now. So I think
Yeah.
then it will potentially be a great meetup, or it
Mhm.
won't, but you know that you're on each other's mind and you can't always make it, but that's life, right? So I feel like that's just very positive as well. Everything
Yeah.
doesn't have to be planned.
I
you know?
agree. So like go that kind of brings up our next one. There's the pause and then there's like clear, simple language to set a boundary. And then there's the bridge and block technique, which is a two-part formula that's kind and firm. So like you said, like acknowledge the relationship, I care about you. And then the block would be setting the boundary, but I can't take this on right now, or I don't have capacity for this right now, or, you know, so that I think that's really helpful. It's really helpful to have the language.
Yeah.
Expect discomfort, not drama. So when others react negatively, it doesn't mean that you did something wrong. You don't need to fix their feelings. It means they were benefiting from you having a lack of boundaries. So stay grounded in your why is so important. And like, what is your why? Like, probably mental peace, right? And like, not feeling overextended and stressed and resentful. So stay grounded in that. And then on the kind of that's more like relationship wise, but boundaries with food, like an internal would be I'll eat when I'm hungry and I'll stop when I'm full. And an external boundary would be like no thank you. You don't if someone's trying to like shove something on you, which people can get a little intense about that, just saying no thank you. Like you don't owe anyone a justification for what's on your plate ever. So keeping that in mind too.
I also wanted to say about like if people have a bad reaction to your boundary, I also believe that many times that is a fear we have, but it's actually not what's going to happen. I think we are fearing that a lot more than it actually happens in real life. I think most people will understand your boundary and they will be totally cool with it. So not setting the boundary because of fear, I think if that is you, then definitely, step outside that comfort zone and just try it out and see. Maybe you will be surprised by the reactions you do get. And
Yeah.
people like, oh, I get it, girl. Like, and that is just fear-based decision making that has no base in reality at all. So definitely something that would be worth exploring, and maybe you will kind of learn a new truth for yourself.
Yeah. I agree. And I think too, like usually if someone has a positive reaction, like um they're it's a healthy relationship, right?
Yeah,
Like you want you to
exactly.
be happy and healthy too. If it's negative, then that can be telling too. And it's like a good information for you to get curious about too. And maybe that's worth exploring. Like, why are you having this negative and noticing like how your relationship is with that person. Um, some real life sample scenarios, which Jess included in the email, but I wanted to share them because I thought they were helpful. Just kind of, so these were like some samples. The endless complainer. So I care about you and I know you're going through a lot right now. So this is like a little sample of like a boundary. These are a little bit cheesy, but someone that's just like constantly complaining all the time when you're around them. So I care about you and I know you're going through a lot right now, but I only have the capacity to listen for 10 more minutes or, whatever you decide and then we need to change the subject. And that sounds like to me, I feel like so I've read what is the book? It's by Melissa. Hold on, I'm gonna look it up. Melissa Hartwig. She is the founder of Whole30 and she wrote the book of boundaries. Highly recommend if you are a people pleaser like myself. But what I love about it is she has all these practical examples of, and I can share the book if that's helpful. She has all these, it's like a pretty easy read. And I have also listened to it on Audible and thought it was great. I'll share it in the chat. But she gives like green, yellow, and red boundaries. So I love that because this one feels like probably a yellow boundary. Red is like aggressive. Green is like a gentle one. Like, hey, um, I'm trying to think of a green one in this scenario. Maybe it would be like,
Just
um,
changing the subject.
well, yeah, or like, hey, I'd love to talk about this right now. Do you mind if we like pivot for a sec? That could be like a green boundary, right? And this would probably be yellow. Red would be like, I love you, but I'm not going to talk to you about this topic anymore. Like, I think you should talk to someone else about it. So like a very hard boundary, which usually you can implement a green a couple times, then a yellow, then a red, or you might just be like, I need to do a red right now. Um, so I think it really comes down to like your like paying it, knowing your own stress levels and what you can manage. Um, and I feel like your personality too. Like I would be one to do a couple greens probably and then yellows, and I'm okay with the slower boundary setting where like Henrietta is like amazing and doesn't mind conflict as much. And like I feel like you would probably be able to set a boundary and feel great. Like I think we're all different in that too. And that's why and Henrietta inspires me.
But sometimes I definitely have gotten some reds
Yeah. And I
my
probably never
way.
have given a red boundary. And I'm like, oh my gosh, can you teach me how to do that? So we're all different, like giving yourself grace, and some things might take slower, but like maybe reaching out to your Enneagram 8 friend and asking him how to do it is also helpful too. If you're an Enneagram 2 or 3, we could do another call on Enneagram sometime. But okay, so then a couple more. So the last minute demander, someone that's just like last minute throwing tasks at you. I really want to support you, but I need a day's notice for requests like this going forward. Simple boundary, right? Like I really want to support you, but I'm going to need a little bit more heads up next time. Um, the energy drainer, I enjoy connecting with you and I need to shift the conversation to like work related topics right now if we can. Something like that. The time invader. I love spending time with you, and I won't be checking my texts after 8 p.m. because that's my quiet time. So that could be a way to set a boundary, or like I'm not going to be responding to this topic over the weekend. I'm spending time with my family. And then the invasive questioner was the last one. I appreciate your interest, and I've decided to keep the details of my finances private or whatever it is. I'm not going to talk about that right now. Like that's not something I feel really comfortable sharing right now. That's one that's really helpful, I think, when people want that's when I actually like worked on in therapy personally. I felt like if someone asked me a question, I had to answer it. And about my personal life. And um so that is one that I think gave me personally a lot of freedom to be like, oh, I don't actually have to discuss it. I'm such an oversharer by nature that like
Oh, we
there
don't
are
have
some things that
that.
are more sensitive for me that I'm like, how do I handle that? And so if it's not someone I trust or I want to share maybe more intimate information with, then being able to say that, like it's okay, just sharing like um I don't really feel comfortable talking about that right now, but I love that you love me and want to know more about me. I'll let you know if I feel like sharing that later. I think that's okay to say and say it kindly. So setting boundaries can feel very awkward at first, especially if you're used to making yourself like smaller to keep the peace. But every no that honors your energy is also a yes to your well-being, and just a reminder you're not responsible for how others feel about your boundaries. You're responsible for your relationship you have with yourself. So I think that is like at the end of the day that's all that we have. So I think it's so helpful to remember that. Anything you guys want to add on like practical application?
I don't know if this is like practical application, but sometimes maybe this is weird or confusing. Sometimes I like to think of boundaries almost in reverse. So rather than like me setting the boundary on what you can do, we can set boundaries with ourselves, right? Like if
Mhm.
you're in a disagreement with somebody, like an example that I use is like, I'm not going to allow them to change how I feel about myself. Right. And you can like narrow in this certain area or this certain topic. It's like I am in control of like my emotions and my feelings, regardless of what he, she, it, that, whatever they do. So rather than like I don't know. I think about it, does that make sense? Rather than like putting them on somebody else, it's almost just making sure that you have that within yourself too.
Mm.
Yeah, I'm like trying to think of an example of that. Um, like you're saying, instead of like telling them what you feel like they should or shouldn't do, like like I think that's like the
Almost
timeline.
like a silent boundary, right? It's like I'm, like again, you're in an argument with your mother-in-law, all right? And and in that situation for me, I'd be like, no matter like what she says, and this might not be necessarily a verbal thing, but like I'm not gonna let that affect, me, how I behave, like what I know to be hard and true. Um, so I'm
It's
just
about,
making sure that you're tight on who you are and your feelings.
and I
Yeah.
think that is what connects to like you controlling what you can control, because you can't control a look or a word or like a conversation from another like you can control yourself. So at least if there's kind of more of a feeling of a thing, then focus on what you can control and then let what you cannot be in a
Uh-huh.
way.
Yeah, and I think too, like that goes along with like, setting a boundary when it invades your peace, I feel like, but then also like giving people some grace too, and like not taking everything so personally, right? Like
Yeah.
maybe someone makes a negative comment, which could really impact you, and it might change like your how you want to have a relationship with that person. But maybe instead of setting like a boundary of like, hey, that really hurt my feelings, please don't say that to me, which is valid if you want to say that. Maybe it's more like, okay, like getting a little bit curious, like I think that whatever I'm doing or whatever I just said is triggering them and they feel threatened by that, and like maybe using it as an opportunity to kind of like empathize with their perspective but not take it personally, and like, okay, like that's really triggering them for some reason. I can see that and like give them a little bit of grace. Like it's not me. I don't need to take it personal. It's about them. So that's like also an opportunity too, because I think we can that can also bog us down and invade our mental peace if we're always worried about what others are saying or doing and how it affects us too, focusing on what's in our control. I love that. I don't know if that like encapsulates what you said, but it's also one that like I think can really like make us feel more anxious or more stressed, which can impact our mental well-being. So, anything
Mm.
else to share? Um, I'd love, Marita, if you want to share just kind of like what you said on your Instagram today is like sort of a boundary with yourself. I thought that was so good. We can kind of end on that.
Well, I mean, it's often like, life gets busy, the seasons get busy. The first thing to go is our health, our fitness, and the hard things, right? Life gets hard. Let me counterbalance it by trying to make it easier for myself. And then you look and it's like, okay, someone ends up in the hospital, you end up sick, and the only thing you actually care about is your health. And so it's really creating a system and bare minimums for yourself where it doesn't ever, it's those boundaries. And they're not always easy to adhere with other people nor with yourself. And it's creating those bare minimums in that system where like I'm going to show up regardless, because if I don't, what's going to
Mm.
happen on the flip side? And it's, um, like you said, we're at a very busy season. We have a lot to take care of. And if something is to happen to you, like who's going to be the person to take care of your parents? Who's the one showing up for your kid? Like now everybody's screwed because you chose to be selfish and not take care of yourself realistically. And nobody's screwed. Like the sun will still set and rise without you, and not without you, but you get what I'm saying. Now I'm getting a little off topic, but it's real. And like it is hard. Like it's so human nature to counterbalance hard by trying to make it easy. But like if we press into that hard, you're going to find easy on the other side. If you try and make things easier for yourself, you're going to end up making it harder for yourself. So we have to stop
But,
running from the pain.
but I think also that is when you're in those situations, it's so important to have that range of expectation of yourself, because
The bare
if
minimum.
life changes in a way that you are not physically capable of putting in as much time or mental capacity, whatever it is, as you have done at some point in life, that just means that it has to look a little bit different now. It doesn't mean giving up or
Yeah,
uh,
it's not all or
cutting
nothing.
it out completely. It just means that, okay, well, how can I show up for myself now so that I'm still, and it's something that it's very important for me is that my health is number one, like always. Okay, my fitness focus, that will differ from the time and capacity that I have, but my
Mhm.
health focus never leaves me. So like, I think, what does that look like for you? Like, it's not, I think fitness is one thing, health is another, and then of course they go together, but that's where you have the range that you have to kind of fit in with what's going on in life, what's important to you, what's your values, all the things.
What are your anchor habits, right? So like we
Yeah.
might be able to ramp that up in less
Yeah.
chaotic seasons, but like what are the things that are always going to be there?
Mm.
And start with those. I love that. So that you are prioritizing yourself in that way. Like your 100% might look different season to season.
Yeah.
Like you're still
Don't be
showing up
rigid.
instead of, I think I hear so often like, oh, I'm this or that. So I'll start workouts when XYZ. So it's like,
Mhm.
okay, well, how about instead of all or nothing, we just do something. Like what's something you could do to keep that habit? And because it's going to give back to you, like Marita said, like what you give is going to come back tenfold, I think, just by showing up for yourself. So how can we
Health and fitness
build
makes everything
strategies?
easier.
It
Like if you
really
have good health.
does.
Oh,
It's
sorry.
hard. No, it's like it requires energy, but it gives you back so much more. So
Mhm.
100%, we all need that reminder, especially as we enter this busy season. So I hope everyone has a fantastic week and thank you so much for joining. And we will be in the app to support you in the meantime. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.